Okay. Because people would rather have Christmas Eve off than the Friday after Thanksgiving. You ready? Okay, it's 5:30, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ottumwa City Council meeting. I'm going to call our meeting to order, and if everybody would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Pope, Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Galloway.
Here.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Here.
Councilmember Hull.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda tonight?
Second.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Yes.
Councilmember Hull.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to approve tonight's city council agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Yes.
Councilmember Hull.
Yes.
The next item is our city administrator's report, so I'll turn it over to Phil.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. I do not have a written report for council and staff or the city today. I'll provide that at the next meeting. But I did want to congratulate the council members on their 1-year anniversary. For those of you that are up here celebrating your 1-year anniversary, and it's been been an interesting year, a good year, and I think we got a lot accomplished. And looking forward to the good things that we can get accomplished this year. I'm going to cede the majority of my time here. We've got a big result with the park plan coming up, and so I will provide a report for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Phil. The next item on the agenda is where I ask if we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak on any of the agenda items tonight during our city council meeting. If there are, would you please raise your hand and identify who you are?
I can't understand. I don't know.
Are you Mr. Reynolds? Okay, yeah, we do have your slip that you do want to speak later. Anyone else that wants to speak on any of the agenda items tonight? If not, we'll go ahead and keep moving down through our agenda then.
Resolution number 1, 2023, adopting the Greater Ottumwa Park Master Plan. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 1, 2023.
Move the recommendations presented.
Second. Okay, Zach.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm going to speak pretty briefly on this, and then Benjamin Boyd has a few things to present. This resolution and this sort of consideration of the plans, the culmination of over a year-long project to develop a master plan for Greater Ottumwa Park. It's more than 300 acres, including all the Sycamore Park and the other things in that general area. And it's really a tremendous treasure to have that kind of park space, to have it located in the center of the community. And it's already a great space, and we wanted to look at ways of utilizing that space to achieve some of our goals around sports tourism, around quality of life. And so the plan really looked at how we could go about doing that. We had at least 4 public meetings. We had 10 stakeholder groups. We had a lot of survey participation, and Ben's going to summarize a lot of that, and he's also going to talk about the findings of the plan. One thing that I did want to talk about a little bit before I introduce him is that the plan does include cost estimates for a lot of these items, and adopting the plan is not committing to spend any of that. The total for everything that's kind of on the wish list would be in the area of $77 million. But voting to approve the plan is just voting to set goals, to identify a roadmap, and to sort of put things in place, to put things on the map so that when there are issues in the future of, well, where should we put this, or how would doing this fit with our long-term vision, we have a consistent long-term vision. We know where those things go. If we want to do fundraising, we know a pretty good idea of what things cost, that sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Benjamin Boyd. He's the design lead for this project. He's also a landscape architect for Design Workshop, which is the firm that we selected to complete the plan. Thanks.
Thank you for that introduction, Zach. Again, my name is Benjamin Boyd. I'm the project manager and landscape architect for Design Workshop. And the team and I are delighted to present our work that we've been going through for, like Zach said, over the last year or so, putting together a framework for the beloved Greater Ottumwa Park. We've really enjoyed working on the project, getting to know your constituents and members of the community, and talking to folks that are really interested in seeing the park succeed and living up to its potential. So, and working with the city and other organizations, including the Legacy Foundation, and doing an array of research, getting community input, we put together these options and gone through quite an exhaustive process to really vet and get buy-in and feedback from those that would be using and visiting the park. Again, the goal is to create a framework of ideas and solutions that can be implemented incrementally as you are able. You know, this is not doing it all at once. It's 300 acres. If you were to go out there and tear it all up and fill it all in now, it wouldn't really be cost effective. But this is really setting, a really long-term roadmap, bits and pieces you can pull off and do as you guys find funding, the necessary folks that want to run things. So we're excited to share the work tonight. So you flip to the next slide. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is go through a brief outline of kind of the work that we did, our approach, and then present the final plan and talk a little bit about cost and next steps. Next. So this is our process generally outlined. So we started with a pretty robust inventory of the park, both physically and talking, with city departments and folks that are operating in the park, as well as sports organizations, how they use it, other schools, how the school system uses it, and putting together an inventory. So we really had a good groundwork for how we were basing our solutions. The next step was a pretty thorough discussion and feedback, testing, outreach portion of the project, which included, as Zach mentioned, a survey, which we got great results on, focus groups, 2 public meetings, which the first of which showed options and testing, the second of which showed alternative plans, surveys at those meetings, and really great just anecdotal feedback from everyone that we talked to. We spent a lot of time talking with folks and listening rather than telling people what to do as much. The next step was taking all that information we got and putting it into some design alternative options. Those were again presented at the second public meeting. And after getting more feedback on that, putting together a final master plan. And the last step, which kind of is the tail end of the project, is how you guys choose to use the plan, implementation, suggestions for first pieces to bite off, things that would be manageable, and kind of passing this information along to you to make good use of it. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so just to run through our discovery phase, again, we looked at site context. A big issue that was brought up in a lot of the meetings was access, parking, getting across the park. The park is bisected by 2 major roads. It's a huge space, but getting from space to space was something that we heard was certainly a problem. The usage of facilities, the maintenance of facilities, and the costs associated with that, and just kind of how all these different organizations overlapped over each other to kind of do the best they could to keep baseball, soccer organizations, keep those things running. We also looked at the environmental aspects of the park. The Oxbow Lake we felt like a really unique and great resource. It's that you don't really see in the center of a public park, and so trying to look for and research solutions on how to make best use of that water body, clean it up, that kind of thing. And then, like I said, talking to stakeholders. The other thing that we took a look at was other parks in the region, in the state, and places that we've been and worked in and projects we've done that found success, sports plexes, central parks, that kind of thing. And looking at not only, what they have, but how much parking they use for their facilities, how the organization shared and used them, how they funded them, that kind of thing. And then the last thing we took a look at was all the great work that's already been done in Ottumwa, the Riverfront Renaissance Master Plan, other plans for the city, comprehensive plans, and try to integrate that work. So ours tied in to complement that work that was already done. Next. Just outlining our public outreach. We did what's called a story map, which is just a public facing live version of the work that we were doing, trying to tell the story of our process. That was live and shared with anyone who came to a public meeting. We sent that out as well. and tried to share that as much as we could, so people could get quick information on the work we were doing. Because when you start these kind of projects, there's a lot of different interests, and people kind of don't know what you're doing. You're coming in from the outside, kind of telling people what to do. So we really wanted to put a good face on and explain what we were doing. We did online surveys, both in English and Spanish, and got really great feedback, really nuanced questions from people to kind of figure out what the priorities were, and ranking what people thought the first thing we should do was, or what the most important thing was, or how they're utilizing the park now. We held public meetings as well, which I've already described, to get additional feedback. And then we just tried to find the right people to speak to who are leading organizations, whether it be sports or civic groups or the city or public works that were stakeholders in the park, and try to get really detailed feedback from those leaders as well. Thanks, please. Thank you. So what we identified were kind of these big buckets of interest that we should focus on. We felt we needed to focus on the park. So Zach mentioned sports tourism, recreation, how people were using the park, not just for that active recreation, but for passive recreation as well. There was a strong desire to see, not see the entire park tore up for sports fields, and people really enjoying the open space and the serenity of being in the space in the middle of the city. But then looking at also how we could preserve that kind of feel, looking at environmental and plant material, water quality, creating natural habitats, Oxbow Lakes I've already mentioned, and then how we could really improve the accessibility of the site. And then looking at the constraints that we had. I think the biggest one that comes to mind would be, revenue for doing some of these things and the process by which you do them. The kind of big task of cleaning up the water bodies there and what that might entail, and the other infrastructure plans that are forthcoming for both the highway and for Wapello, and how we could integrate with those things. Next, thank you. Okay, so we took what we felt was a pretty simple approach to the park. The roads made it pretty easy, and so we divided the park into 4 zones. You'll see this kind of show up through the presentation further as well. So Zone A, which is where currently there's some soccer fields, the softball complex, dog park. Zone B, where Sycamore Park is, the beach, and potentially the future indoor recreation center. Zone C, where kind of the balloons go off, where the event center is, and where RV camping is. And then Zone D, where currently Legion Field is, playgrounds, lakes, and some other program there as well. Next, thank you. So we tried to take that program and focus it into those zones, and then understand how we would take that and present it to the public and ask, is this the right thing for the space based on what you want, baseball to do or soccer to do? Is this enough space in these zones to actually do these things? So we try to look at that program and the spatial requirements of those things as well. Next slide. So this is just one example of taking baseball. So it's a big park, but if you take everything everybody wants and try to fit it in there, it still doesn't fit. And so that's something we physically had to take a look at. Looking at options for where to put soccer, in what arrangements, in what orientation for proper, competitive play. Same thing with tennis, baseball as well. Baseball eats up a lot of space for a really full-size complex, and just understanding what our limitations are, and then presenting and asking those questions. Are we on the right track? Are we showing you the right stuff? What are we, I don't play baseball, so understanding what is the breakdown of different sizes of fields, different requirements for moving around in the space, and how events are run, and getting that feedback was really invaluable to helping us in our design process. Just as an example. Next slide, please. So after all that testing and feedback, what we came to were 2 alternates for the plan. And I apologize, these aren't labeled on here, but again, if you remember Zone A, which is that top left, more northernmost quadrant, the real differences between is in that zone. In one option we had soccer, and another option we had more of an amphitheater. We kind of love the idea of overlooking the river, even though the levee's in the way, but having an amphitheater in there, having the city as a backdrop, doing fireworks for events, and really taking advantage of that vista. And then in Zone C, which is the one directly below it, that being a pretty wide open space, understanding what we could fit in there. In the second option, we tested if you filled in one of the lakes, what you could do in terms of flexibility for soccer, but how that would also impact events you guys are already running. So the Balloon Festival and other events that are going in at the shelter. Next slide, please. And so after all that feedback, the final plan that we came to, even though the orientation of the soccer fields wouldn't necessarily be perfect for high-level competition play, and it's a slightly difficult space because it's a little bit longer and slender, we opted to keep soccer in Zone A in the north. The program that's already there, but maximizing it, utilizing it, future moving softball in, so it's located, baseball, softball, all those things are located together so they can utilize the same facilities. In Zone B, taking advantage of the adjacency of a future indoor rec center and the beach and fitting tennis in that zone in and amongst the existing Sycamore Park. Leaving Zone C, which is the left quadrant, more passive, expanding upon the capabilities for events in that zone, the flexibility for events, adding potential additional program. If you were to improve the Oxbow Lakes, you could introduce a fishing center in there, potentially, and take advantage of that for water recreation. And then in Zone D, really a hive of active recreation activity, building upon the adjacency to Legion Field, putting baseball in there, adding more parking, limiting it though. Right now you can kind of drive anywhere you want in the park, trying to, as you had bigger events, trying to organize that in a manner that allowed the park to still be a park and open and allow people to walk around and use the trails. And so you'll see to the south of that proposal for, maybe in the future, an expansion of RV camping or tent camping in that zone, which is a little bit farther away from the highway, quieter, and building upon kind of the adjacency to the neighborhoods to the south. Next slide, please.
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
How was the parking determined that you needed how much parking for each of those zones?
Right. So we looked at those other sports facilities in and around Iowa that are operating at a high level and tried to take a precedent amount of using other research that we have as well. For basically, we took, if you have X amount of fields, for each field, you need X amount of parking for that field to run an event. And so mathing that out, and I have a parking slide going a little bit, we can dive in a little bit to the numbers and just trying to set that based on really that ratio. It's not perfect because parking, we could fill the whole place with parking too if we wanted to. So we really wanted to find a balance and not overload, turn a big great green space into a parking lot. And so what we're showing here is an example, and you'll see the rendering there in the top left of what soccer could turn itself into, of softball to move, and we condensed the dog park a little bit in the future, not saying doing that immediately, and how you could maximize your ability to have soccer for events, for leagues and other things in that zone, and how parking could work with Highway 34 and the levee. Next slide, please. In Zone B, this is a really complicated zone. You have an existing program in there, the beach, which is well loved in that zone, the future potential indoor rec complex, and then the adjacency to the Bridgeview Center and the future hotel that's in there. And so it kind of seems a little strange, and unless we talk about it a little bit more detail, that we're fitting a square into a kind of or square peg into a round hole there with tennis, but really we felt it was important, and after talking to the USTA as well and their requirements for grants for these kind of facilities, to have that tennis at a north-south orientation. So kind of the organic shape of the park didn't lend itself, so we fit it as best we could for a future tennis complex in that zone. And just working with the existing parking that you already have and events, trying to balance usage and times and that sort of thing. The other thing that's shown at the bottom is we kind of cheated a little and went outside of our zone a little and suggested, we tried to fit an amphitheater in the park in Zone C and Zone A, and really felt that the facility or the space that's south of the Ridgeview Center down the river actually would present a really great opportunity. You could use the existing historic rail bridge for access from the other side of the river, do parking over there, and turn that into a really great event space that you could control and ticket, which you currently can't do in certain spaces of the park. It's hard to can't fence off the whole area, and so that presented a really great opportunity, and the adjacency to the hotel. Next step, please. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. Zone C, again, we were really resonating with these ideas of people wanting more passive areas in the park and having quieter spaces to walk and, play and, explore without necessarily being next to ball fields and things like that. And the flexibility of having that, but also having bigger events. So really this is building upon what you have now, doing events in that space, having the open lawn area, proposing some improvements for the Jimmy Jones shelter. So it has more capabilities for sound and protection, and you can bring, bigger events into that space. And then if you were, again, to improve the Oxbow Lagoon, which we call the West Oxbow Lagoon, other facilities like fishing or a botanic garden in that zone could fill out that kind of passive idea of the space. The lakes all have names on them, just so you know, but we just named them. They didn't have names, so there's no set precedent on some of these things. West Oxbow Lagoon, very original name, but there's flexibility kind of in all these things. But just putting names to things we felt for wayfinding a little was important. And next slide, please. And then the last slide, or last zone, Zone D, again, fitting and maximizing based on the feedback we got from the folks operating softball, youth baseball, the school system, how many fields would be needed, what kind, what surfaces, how they would mix, how they would use them for events, for practices, that kind of thing. Fitting that program into Zone D. This would be taking advantage of the lake that you're already filling in. And once that's completed, utilizing that space as well. And then the potential, again, I mentioned for RV or tent camping, there on that south side and kind of cordoning off that quieter zone that's an extension of the Zone C program. Next slide. Thanks. So here's a little bit more information on parking ratios. So again, looking at each sport, how many you might need for an event. I think we got some feedback that people would really like as much as they can in the park, and so we really had to push against that to give a reasonable level of parking that was based on other uses that we've seen. But there is a lot of flexibility, like I mentioned, more or less parking as needed as kind of these individual facilities are developed. Next slide, please. And then this is just a map showing where that parking is proposed in the different zones. Next slide. Thanks. Okay, so here's the little bit more difficult part. And so we did 2 cost assessments along with our own work internally in our design team as we progressed through these options. So we did cost estimates at the alternates portion of the design and then at the final master plan of the design. So this, and I'll get to the second slide as well, is really a menu of options of things you can do. Some things are tied together. If you do one, you kind of do the parking that goes along with it, but it is giving you an idea of if you were to fully build out Zone A, B, C, the things that we're including in the plan, how much they might cost. And again, this is today's construction prices with escalation and other things like that. If this were to be bid off 10, 15 years down the road, that would probably have to be reassessed. But understanding, relative to one another, how much things cost, felt was really important. If you could, in the next slide, please. And so I understand that seeing, like 76 million, as Zach mentioned, not buying off on that as a total amount, but really using it as a goal-setting idea for the things that are included and how much something might cost. How much does a playground cost if we just do that? Let's have an idea. And so those things are broken out in that manner. The last thing that's not included in that total, really there, that is a little bit more technical, is the Oxbow Lakes. And so the process by which you go mitigating those is relatively complex, depends on what you find in it as well. We heard stories about what might be in the Oxbow Lakes or what, things we might find in there. And so really it's a question. So the idea here is if you were to dredge it to make it a little bit deeper, a couple feet deeper, you could actually get fishing, rowing, some other things that are on there and really maximize its usage, the water body's usage for recreation. And so that number is a little bit separate, but again, just as a baseline to look at. Next slide, thanks. So as I wrap up, really next steps, we've already, as Zach and I think is on the docket, already talked a little bit about looking at the tennis complex in phase one, getting that to construction level detailing and implementing that in that space. And then talking about what might be the easy, still low hanging fruit that you can bite off first to improve the park, make immediate improvements based on what you have. And we think soccer would be a great option for that as well. And we've suggested as much. And really, after that, the next steps are up to you and up to the people in the city of Ottumwa to kind of decide what's important based on recommendations we've provided, and really take the park to the next level. So I think that's it. Thank you for the time. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I guess one question that I had, and I really applaud the city and your company's efforts to have a lot of this public input, to get as much public input as you could. But everybody's going to have their own ideas on what they'd like to see. Some of that's more realistic than others.
Mm-hmm.
How did you end up ultimately determining how that public input weighed into the prioritization of what you have spelled out in each zone?
Well, I think that's a great point. There were a lot of differing opinions on what we should do and to what breadth. I think we tried to take people's kind of dreams to a certain degree of what, if it was baseball, for instance, what the maximum they felt like they could do in the space, and then try to hone that in. So I don't think. The other issue is that people's priorities often overlapped as well. And what we actually found is that, when we walked in, we thought there might be a little bit of tension based on those people's wants and desires. What we found is actually people really have a strong desire to work together and utilize these things. And so we tried to hone it back, and then just based it on other sports facilities we've done as well, what we think based on population usage and, current demand, for instance, for soccer, adult league soccer, or youth sports, whatever it is. Based on those numbers, what the facility size ended up really needing to be, and then what you could actually physically fit. All of those things kind of had to balance. So we had a lot of long conversations, and with folks at those meetings, after the meetings, in the park, and so we really felt the feedback was invaluable to helping us prioritize. What we heard was people's most important. And the other thing, the surveys in the meetings also helped too, because people could see around them, what things were floating to the surface of priority.
Does council have any questions they'd like to ask?
Looking at the amphitheater that you had designed on the back side of Bridgeview Center, I know that there was discussion during the public meetings about what size that you were looking at. The final design, what size is that really kind of designed for?
Well, it's a pretty big space, and so this is what we envision a full utilization of that space could be, but we're imagining medium-sized concerts, outdoor concerts, or special events, that kind of thing. If you could bring in kind of a middle tier, musician or anything like that, or even a small festival. We've seen these kind of facilities with multiple stages for big festivals, and we didn't feel like the space lended itself to that unless we did it in the park proper. And so we felt one stage with the backdrop of the city, and then parking on the other side of the river, which is not shown on this plan, but is on the overall master plan, could meet that kind of like middle need, right? And so it's a large concert. It's larger than what you could do at the Jimmy Jones shelter, but it's a big space. And so it could have, I think what's shown in here, I know what's shown in here is kind of hard seating at the front. So maybe like 20, 30 rows of hard seating in the front and then lawn seating behind it. But that could just as easily be lawn, a stage, or it could all be hard seating. So it's really flexible based on, I think some of the folks that are performing at the Bridgeview Center, we thought might have a lot of alignment as well. And so pairing those two together next to each other made a lot of sense to us.
So are you thinking like 2,000 to 5,000-ish?
I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess where I'm having a little bit of difficulty in looking at both the master plan and this slide is, where's the parking for that 2,000 to 5,000 people?
Yeah, that's a failing in my part for not showing it on here. So because it's a little bit outside of our scope zone, we were out looking at the other side of the river, so the north bank. And so there's a huge area actually on the other side of the historic bridge that's underutilized right now at the moment. And so there's a big area kind of like past the skate park a little bit farther down on the bank, there could be parking for this. And then you could use the bridge for actually your access control to the space. And so you could take ticketing, other things like that on that side. You could use parking in the park as well, at the Bridgeview Center as well, and at the beach. But for a bigger event, that's another option as well.
If the existing ball fields are taken out, though, eventually where that amphitheater is supposed to be built, wouldn't there be available parking south of that amphitheater or not?
It could be. In this plan, we kind of filled the whole space, but you certainly could. It makes it a little bit harder for access control, but it's not. There's a lot of space in there. You could certainly do that. For 2,000 to 5,000 people, you probably need a little bit more, I would say. And so, getting people down the trail in and around, or on, the highway doesn't really present easy access from one space to another. So it's a complicated issue, I think, for access control in those zones, and really in lots of areas of the park for a ticketed event.
I would also just add that for the amphitheater specifically, this was kind of outside of the project scope to go to this area. They sort of identified there was a need, and so they did a really rough, just sort of, this would be a good placement for it, but it doesn't answer any question because we have to do a lot more down the road to decide we want to build it.
We found that people really wanted it, but it didn't really fit within the other things that were fitting in the park, to that point of like, we can't fit everything, even though the park's really big. And so, as Zach said, we cheated a little and went a little outside.
Well, and I think there could possibly be some space on the north side of the river for potential amphitheater on that side of the river too. Possibly. I
Yeah.
mean, if it was decided not to put it there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot. There really is. That's the case for really the whole bank here, and I think the Riverfront Renaissance Plan pointed out a lot of those things as well. So there's just a ton of opportunity. Having the pedestrian bridge there is really also a great opportunity, and trying to integrate it into those plans more cohesively really made a lot of sense.
In looking at moving across Church Street, looking at where the beach is, where the proposed sports complex is, where the proposal for the tennis courts are, this has been going on for a while. Does this really encapsulate what the most current plans will be for those two new projects that are coming on?
This shows a full build out of the space, a vision full build out. Currently the detail plan that you'll be discussing at your next meeting is a phase 1 of tennis. And so it's just the tennis courts that are kind of the 12 that are over to the left. We envisioned playground, an indoor, obviously the indoor facility, which you were talking about as well, or and then, pickleball, which is one of the quickest rising sports in the country as well, trying to fit that in, talk with the USTI on, how close those things are together in order to qualify for grants. This represents a full build out. Phase 1 of that is just 12 courts, post-tension concrete in that zone.
Okay. And then the last question, I guess, that I have, at least for right now, is looking at the soccer complexes in Zone C. Is that right?
A. Could you flip back?
A,
Just
it's
one.
nowhere.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I might have missed it in the plan. How many parking spots are you including in those fields?
If you flip down a couple slides, I have a table of parking. One more. So, one back. Sorry. One more down. There. 336 spaces.
Okay. Now, with that, are we going to have to dig into the levee to push those fields back at all?
No, we felt that was kind of a logistical nightmare to deal with, and so that's why all the parking is kind of narrowly placed against kind of the embankment of Highway 34 to the south, and we didn't want to eat into the levee at all. We felt like nobody would let us, and so right now that's all fitting in there without touching it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And is all the parking for all these zones, is that all envisioned to be concrete, hard surface parking? It's not gravel parking, is it?
Right. I mean, that's how we've shown and priced it as well. But again, all these things, you could bite off different pieces. You could do an interim. That you don't need all, if you're doing a phase 1 of soccer and just a couple field improvements, you don't need all the parking all at once. The dog park as it exists now is bigger than what's shown on here. This is showing kind of a condensed version of that, so you could fit a playground, a couple more fields. So it's very flexible.
Council have any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Zach, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I think Ben really summed it up. The main thing again is just that the vote tonight is to set a direction, and I think that our opinion really is that they fulfilled the requirement, that they did plat out all the things that we would want as a community. They gave us a good sense of where they could go and what we'd need to do to put them there. So I think that it'd be a good next step to sort of move these projects forward.
Okay, if there's no further questions, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway? Yes. Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Resolution number 2, 2023, awarding the contract for mowing and nuisance cleanup services to J&J Mowing. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 2, 2023.
Move the recommendation is presented.
Second.
Okay, Zach.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. So as you will remember, a few months ago, we did choose to end the contract with our previous mowing services contractor after the first year and go out and find someone else. We did post bids for that until December 9th, 2022, or open bids, I should say, and 2 bids were received. Each bidder had certain price points where they had a lower bid than the other bidder. And so we looked at some other factors to consider as well, including relevant experience, their understanding of the project, and their fitness for project requirements. The total tabulation of those scores was included in the packet. Staff did score highest J&J Mowing, which was the contractor before the contractor we just got rid of. They had also been fairly competitive in the last round in terms of price, but they had not included some items in their RFP that were requested. And so as a result, they'd scored pretty low. In this case, they did fix that. They made sure to include all the things that we were asking for, the equipment list, references, that kind of thing. The prices that they quoted were $50 per lot for lots less than 1 acre, $60 per labor hour for lots greater than 1 acre, $65 per labor hour for hand clearing of lots, $3,750 for mowing the Jefferson drainage ditch per occurrence, and $65 per labor hour for nuisance abatement cleanups.
And J&J Mowing had a long-standing contract for several years with the city prior, right?
They had, I want to say, at least 10 years. The last thing I guess I would say is that I did have a meeting with Don Jones when he dropped off the contract. And we're going to have a ready meeting before the grass season starts as well. And we're going to just try to keep better touch with each other. But we have a really good expectation from each other as far as how we'll handle invoices, but also how we'll keep everybody accountable to make sure all the jobs are done within time, that we're communicating good information back and forth about what the jobs are, that kind of thing. And we're pretty confident going into this one.
Does council have any questions for Zach? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway? Yes. Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Mayor, someone in the audience did say he had a question. He didn't fill out a card. I don't know if you wanted to.
Is it an item on the agenda or is it the landscaping part of the park plan? Do you want to come forward and state your name and your address, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Yasir Torres. My address, my home address is 545 Ray Street here in Ottumwa. And my question was, how long was or is the contract for that?
Oh, with J&J Mowing?
So this contract is for the 2023 mowing season, and then unless anything changes, it would renew automatically through the 2027 mowing season.
Does that answer your question, sir? Okay.
Resolution number 4, 2023, approving the replacement of flight model 3152-181-6359 wastewater pump and the amount of $29,858 for the water pollution control facility. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 4, 2023.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Okay, Larry.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is to replace a recently pulled unit used for pumping return activated sludge. This current unit has a stator stuck in the stator housing and has essentially welded itself. The cost of a new unit is estimated at exceeding $29,858. The cost to repair the unit is quoted at $27,146. Due to the difference in the age of $2,712, we recommend just replacing the pump, of course, instead of replacing or repairing. We each year budget $140,000 for pump replacement, and this item would be taken out of that with the expense and the previous balance of $95,886. The remaining balance in this fund would be $65,228.
Does council have any questions for Larry? Okay, if not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
This is the point in the city council meeting where I'd ask if anyone in the audience would like to speak on any item that is not on our agenda tonight. And Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds, do you want to come forward first and state your name and your address, please?
My name is Robert Reynolds, and I'm here about derelict house.
I didn't hear you. Can you say that again?
I have a hard time hearing, so if, what's that?
I didn't hear what you said. What are you here for?
Oh, a derelict house.
Oh, okay.
That's what I want to know what's been done with it. It's been tagged for years.
Can you give the address, sir?
Can you give us the address?
556 South Ward. You have to be my interpreter. Okay. The microphone.
Isn't that one we just did? Okay, we'd have to get an update from our health department on that.
You what?
Okay.
Go ahead, Zach.
Wait, later? Oh, now what? Okay.
This guy here will.
It's stay close so you can hear me, but I'll tell them the update as well,
Yeah, okay.
if I can use the microphone.
This house is next to where I live and my brother's house. I've lived in it when I was a kid. I lived in the neighborhood over 85 years. There's been houses up the street that I've turned in and fought to get the city to do something. I finally win it. I've been threatened by the health department for turning men in so much. The guy come out to my house from the health department and threatened me and my wife about turning men in. This has been 5 or 6 years ago. But I fought in that neighborhood. I got the 2 houses tore down, and guess what? There's 2 new houses there. This one, it's a crumble house. The last person lived in it died with AIDS. They did nothing. The neighbor south of it says he gets rats. And when the guy died with AIDS, there's nothing there so the termites started coming next door, or roaches. And my son had to pay to get them stopped. The yard was just covered with it. The terminator said he never seen such a mess. The city tags it. the owner would come down and tear the tag off. Well, the first time I turned this property in, the man in the health department said, it won't do you a bit of good because this guy's got so much on the city that he's not going to do that. It must be true because it's been 6 years ago. So I was sick. I never got around to it. 4 years ago, I started again on it. Nothing happened, so I went up. It'll be a year in April, complaining about it again. And what'd they say? We've never had a complaint on it. Now, what the heck is the health department doing?
Well, looks
If
like
they-
looks like Zach's got a pretty thick file right there. So maybe we can get an update from him, and he'll answer a lot of your questions that you have about that property. See that file in his hand? He's gonna give us an update of what's on that property and when it's gonna be taken care of for you.
I don't know what he said. Do you want to talk?
Yeah, he just said that I'm going to give a quick update on what we have with that property.
Well, yeah, that's what I was.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So the property has been placarded. It looks like at least 2021. We opened the file in April of 2021. It's been placarded since 2021. And we did have a case where the owner of the property did pass away. Shortly after he passed away, a person who had a real estate contract presented that document to us, and we did give her some time with that property while it was in probate. She was supposed to make improvements. That did not happen, and the property did continue to get worse. But in November of last year, while we were starting to maybe be able to get toward the end game a little bit, a relative of the former owner did present probate documents showing that they were the executor of that estate and requested time to make repairs on the house. And again, this was just in November. They had not been at the property previously, but they did inherit it, I suppose. And so we did present them with an opportunity to create a repair plan as well. It looks like we haven't seen very much progress so far toward that repair plan, but they would have at least a couple more months to complete work or to show that they're going to be able to make progress. If it looks like there are some pretty significant deficiencies, and so if that progress is going to continue to be stalled, then we'd be looking toward condemnation or other options to sort of close out the file here, March, April, hopefully, if that progress is stalled. But again, obviously, we would hope that they'd be able to complete the repair plan as they promised they would. So.
Well, okay. So they come out, I asked them what to do. They tagged it. They said they're not allowed on it to do nothing. Call us. I call them. Oh, well, yeah, we gave them permission to do this. Well, last week, they went in and cleaned up around the house. But where did the stuff go? I never did see a truck there to haul it away. Did they throw it in the house? And they put some danged old vinyl siding on it. Halfway up on the north side and one right at the bottom, there's 4 different layers of siding on that house. You could see the old brick siding. The brick siding's what? 80 years old. It's, I get nothing out of these guys. They don't do nothing.
Hey, Zach,
And they tore the owners or whoever, they'd tear the signs down, the condemned signs or the whatever the heck you want to call them, and nothing was done. And it says right in there, it's against the law of terror. You turn it in for that, nothing happens.
So Zach, has the executor of this property been furnished with a deficiency list from the city as far as the items that would have to be brought up to compliance?
The mayor's question was whether the executor of the state has received the deficiency list. And yes, they did receive the list, and they did, I think it looks like they submitted a repair plan, and they did receive some permission to be on the property during the day to attempt to make repairs.
So in their repair plan that they turned into the city. Was that an acceptable repair plan? And how long do they have to get it all brought up to date then?
I can see if I can't find the repair plan here.
Have you seen?
Based on the date, I've been in the property before, many years ago, but I'm familiar a little bit. I'm not seeing the repair plan right away, but based on the date that is on the file here, we made contact with that person on November 8th. And so the repair plan, we'd usually look for progress within 3 months. And so we'd be approaching 2 months now. So February or so, and then we'd be able to start, if that progress is stalled, we'd be able to send the 30-day notice to abate and begin the sort of process of the condemnation.
Hey, Zach, is there any way your office can just write a short letter to him? Because I think where he's not understanding is we have to give them 6 months. If we told him we'd give them 6 months and explain in the letter, it was delayed because someone else came up and said that they're the executor, and then let him know by February, March, if nothing's done, their 6 months is up, and then we can vote on.
All right, I talked to the neighbor south of him, and he said he get rats all the time from that place.
Get what? Oh,
Unfortunately, where that house is located at, I mean, you're close to a cornfield there, so you're pretty susceptible to mice in that part of town. I live in that part of town, so I know you're pretty susceptible to mice in that area.
As a point of order, this isn't on the agenda tonight. So
Yeah.
if this is something we'd want to carry on, we should really move it to an official agenda.
Well,
Well, it
it's
sounds
a
as
damn
though,
shame that nothing can be done.
well, I think
They
what
put a
Zach,
door, wait a minute, they put a door on it. They hung it on the inside, the outside door. These people are not capable of fixing anything.
and I think what Zach has said is that there is a plan, and within the next 2 months, or next month and a half, it sounds like that's when we can start moving forward on next processes. If what you're saying, it continues to happen. So we have, as a city, we have processes and policies that we have to follow too. And it sounds like Zach is going to follow up with that too, to ensure that that plan is either followed or not. And if it's not followed, then he's going to take the next steps in his department.
I suggest every one of you go by and look at the house. You can sit up here and vision it, look at it, walk around it. It's been there for years that way. And what happened 4 years ago? Where'd all them records go? Where I turned it in and it was never, you don't have no records of it. Who's responsible? Then they say, oh, this last time you did it in April, you got to wait 16 months. Why should I have to wait 16 months when I started 4 years ago?
And I'm not sure what happened with your original complaint, but it sounds like Zach's department is moving forward on the process and ensuring that the stuff is either done. And if it's not done, then we'll move to the next step.
They'll do it. They're not capable of it. They
Your
can't
Honor,
drive
if we
a
could
minute.
have a point of order, I think we've established that there's an issue with this address. We've established that the department's working on it. This is not something that's on the agenda. We are aware that there's an issue now. So I think that this is a point where anything that is being said is either hearsay or it's something that is not provable at this point. So I would suggest that we just move on at this juncture.
Mr. Reynolds, we do appreciate your comments, but like Councilman Rowe just said, it is being worked through the process. The council can't take any official action on anything yet because it hasn't went to condemnation and demolition yet. But hopefully in the next 2 months, this issue is going to get resolved one way or another. So we do appreciate you coming and voicing your concern tonight. And hopefully in the next 2 months, something will be done to keep this moving forward in the right direction if the current owners can't make the necessary repairs. So
Well,
thank
I
you
know
for
you
coming.
haven't been in long, but I've heard that story from the other mayors and them people. Nothing happens. To me, who's getting paid off along the way for it?
all right.
Well-
Thanks,
That's what I
Bob.
heard.
We're done. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you for your comments tonight. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Sir, did you want to come forward now and bring up your issue? And again, repeat your name and your home address.
My name's Jasfir Torres. I live at 545 Ray Street. First, I want to apologize if I stutter or I'm nervous. I've never done this before.
You're okay.
The only person I've met is Chris. And I do want to thank you guys. We just opened a bar and grill, which you guys endorsed. It's going amazing. I just came to introduce myself because, like I forgot his name. Sorry.
Bob.
He's got concern. What was your name, Mister? Okay. He's got concerns just like I do as a citizen. I'm a small contractor with big dreams and bigger goals. And as a businessman, I listen to people that talk bad about our city because it is our city. It's my city. It's the city that's seeing me grow. And I just want to introduce myself because I think you're going to start seeing a little bit of me here. I want to, just like I talked to, I'm bad with names, Zach earlier. I want Ottumwa to shine again. When I got here back in 2004, I mean, it was prosperous. I don't know when the meth epidemic hit here. I'm not into the drug thing, but when I got here, there's Target. There's a lot of places to go. Like I explained to him. What do the city people go to enjoy life they go elsewhere instead of spending money here. And I want to change that. At least little by little, because I've learned that when you try to be the king of the world in one hit, it won't happen. You got to take it little by little. And if I can do that by running a business either in construction or in my bar, because they come in here and they're like, hey, this is the cleanest bar I've been in town. And I don't know, but I feel pretty proud of that. It's not my building, right? Because as Zach knows, I'm trying to work on some properties to build my own and make it new, build it right. And where people, if they pass by the bridge or anywhere they go, they're like, oh, look at that place. I want to bring attention because attention brings a good economic prosperity to the city. You know, I don't have the best terminology because I'm going to be honest. I didn't graduate high school. And I've been in both sides of the law. And I can tell you, I love this side. I don't ever want to go that side. And as a person that comes from nothing, to start becoming something is a lot. And if I can show that to people that have no hope, that say, oh, I done this and I can't. No, that's BS. Because if I've done it, you guys can do it. And in our establishment out there, you know, people start to tell me, hey, you should be in politics. Because when I'm not like not right now, jitterish and nervous, man, I don't know, I can sell a lot, as you can tell. My grosses are going pretty high, pretty fast. But long story short, I think the city has a lot of potential like it had. I'm not up to date to everything like the park that they're trying to do. That's why I'm here today. And I'm going to start getting knowledge because knowledge is power. And I'm going to start getting involved into this because I honestly, I like the idea of having a really nice park, but I think I would rather have a nicer entrance to our city. So when people swing and come in, not only when that project just passed, they can come into a city that's like on the West End entrance where the railroad, all that's full of old and broken down and dead trees. I want people to come in and say, holy smokes, look at this. or on the east side, or on the south side, or on the north side. Not only come to, oh, the center of town is nice. An entrance is always a view of the city itself.
Right.
And I believe that, like I said, I don't know what the process, like the cleaning. That's the other question too that I had about the contract, because I believe in myself. I believe that it could be more cost effective. I believe there's a lot of chances out there, just people like me, that I finally had the guts to come and say, okay, you know what? I think I can make a change here. They don't have that courage yet. And I believe that I can slowly. The good thing now is that I have my bar, I have people coming in. And the people that are coming in ask me, hey, is this only a Mexican bar? I said, no. I said, this bar is an everybody bar. And I've posted that in my page. And we've had so many ethnic groups come in and they enjoy, and they're like, hey, can I put a song? I said, hey, you tell me, I'll put it on for you, because this is your bar, just like his and his. Because I see a bigger picture. I just don't see one ethnic group. And I think that's what's going to make this town, with that view, bright again. And I understand where he's coming, his concerns of cleaning up, because yeah, we do need a lot of cleanup before we invest $77 million project. But just like I said, it's just something that it's coming out of my heart, out of my chest, because I still don't have the knowledge of what's going on. But I pledge that from now on, I will try to get more into detail about bringing this town back. And that's pretty much it. I have more, but I don't want to waste your time. But maybe next time.
Well, we really appreciate your efforts, and I can assure you that when we all ran last year, we were all very committed to doing what we can in the next 4 years to help Ottumwa continue to grow, not only with new retail, but also new industry, new businesses, because that's what's going to help our community grow. There's a lot of things being done on housing. The city is trying to be very aggressive in getting rid of derelict housing so we can clean up bad properties that make our town look bad. There is being work done on looking at what we can do to enhance all the 4 entrances coming into Ottumwa, because that is important. When people have to go through bad neighborhoods to get into Ottumwa, we want all 4 entrances into the city to look a lot nicer than some of them look right now, but it takes a lot of time and it takes money. Sure. That doesn't mean we're not going to keep doing those things. But, and I've talked with Mr. Reynolds before, I just don't think the public understands. Right. When you go to condemn a property, you have to go through all these legal proceedings, and it takes a long time to get there, and it gets real frustrating because people don't think anything's happening very quickly. Right. But property owners have rights, and you have to make sure you give them proper notices and proper time to come up with corrective action plans. And if they can't do it, then the city can move forward with condemnation. But all this stuff takes a lot of time, and I just don't think the public always understands that. So then they think nothing's happening.
And I'll be the first one to say I thought that way. But now that I'm starting to get more into this and involved, now I see, okay, there's a bigger process. You know, it's easy to say, oh, you ain't doing crap, excuse my language. But then you're over here, like Mr. Zach, with all that paperwork, and there you go. But it takes time. So, and I understand that now. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I want to start getting knowledge about stuff like that. So, you know, if there's a way we can, or the city can have a cost effective, because I have a lot of cousins, man. No, I'm messing with you. But that I think we can, I believe there can be a cost effective way of cleaning up, you know, to save the city money. And ideas. I have a lot of ideas too, but you know, like I said, this is my first day, and like I'm shaking because it's like, oh my God. But I think we have a bright future here.
Well, we do appreciate you for coming, because we'd like to see more of the public show up at city council meetings, because we need to hear what people are thinking And I applaud you as a new business owner for opening a bar in Ottumwa and trying to make it a nice place. We're all about increasing our new businesses and retail and industry, because that's what's going to help our town grow. But we also need adequate housing, and the city's working very diligently on new housing projects. So there's a lot of positive things happening in Ottumwa, but it just, unfortunately, it's not all going to happen overnight. But I think the public will continue to see major improvements in our city over the next 3 to 5 years.
Can I bring an idea to bring a lot more people in?
What?
Tell them there's free beer and a DJ, and you'll have more. I'm messing.
Well, like I said, we can't take any action on anything tonight. But thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it. And thank you for your efforts to bring a new business to Ottumwa.
And there are boards and commissions that are available if you do want to get more with spots available, if you do want to get more involved with the city and what's going on too. You can find those on our city website.
Just Ottumwa.com?
Ottumwa.us.
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 Anyone else?
I just, before we move on to the mayor city council report, there was a comment made a few moments ago about staff being paid off, or kind of made in passing. I want it on the record there that we have dedicated city employees that care a lot about the city, especially in building and code enforcement, that have been busting their butts this last couple years to take care of derelict properties. There, as the mayor said, there is a process that has to be followed. I don't know how many homes have been taken down, and how many times people have been before this council at Board of Health and otherwise, where there has been somebody coming to contest it, that it is in the 11th and a half hour that they're coming before you and pleading that case. And so it's not that it's something as simple as just going and saying, yep, that house needs to come down, and doing that. So I took a little offense to that comment, and I'm sure the staff would. So I just want to go on record and say we have dedicated people that would not be looking to take bribes or things like that. That is not the way that we do things here. I just want that on the record.
And Mr. Reynolds had indicated that to me when he came and talked to me earlier, and I basically said the same thing. So, but that's absolutely true. We have excellent staff, and they work very hard. The only thing that I've got for an announcement is I would like to let the public know that on Sunday, January 15th at 3 p.m. at the First Presbyterian Church in Ottumwa, they're going to have their next Martin Luther King Day celebration. The county and city offices will be closed on Monday, January 16th for Martin Luther King Day. But there will be that citywide celebration. Last year it was at St. Mary's Church, but this year it will be Sunday, January 15th at 3 p.m. at First Presbyterian Church on West 4th Street, and the public is invited to that. So that was one announcement that I wanted to make. Does the council have any announcements or anything they want to make on anything? If not, I know we've had a fairly short meeting tonight for a change. If there's no other announcements or communications, I'd ask for a motion for adjournment.
So move. Second.
We're done. We're done. We're done.
We can answer it. We can answer it afterwards if it isn't, if it's just a simple question. Oh, we can talk about ideas afterwards.
So Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes. I'd encourage you to talk with Zach.
Thank you, everybody.
Depending on the
We are
idea.
adjourned,
Bill.
and have a good evening.